So this session, we're going to cover two competitors. We're going to cover RingCentral, and next we will cover 8x8. These battle cards, for those who weren't on the first session, they're just, they're now 3 pages of information about the competitor, what they offer, how it compares to what Unify offers, and there's sort of the Cliff Notes version of that competitor. So as you go into deals and you're facing these competitors or your customers ask about competitors, this gives you a leg up to understand what their business is. So with RingCentral, they're a California-based company. They claim about 300,000 organizations use their service. They don't say how many users, their end users there are. Depends, because that would give us an idea of how big their average installation is. 32% right now is what they're, 35% is what they account to channel sales, 65% direct. They're moving that ball over towards more channel sales. So over time, you will see the 35% number grow. Primary target market is cloud UC and contact center. Financials for their fiscal year 2017, which actually only ended about a week or so ago, $501 million in revenue, which was a 32% jump year over year. As we'll see when we get to 8x8, they're not growing as quickly as RingCentral is. And what's interesting about that is, as you see these startup companies go, it's very easy to double your revenue when it was $1 last year and to get to $2 this year. Once you start getting up into the multiple hundreds of millions, usually the year-over-year percentage increases start to taper off because it's just harder to get that much more money every year. The last couple of years, RingCentral has been holding this 30-some% increase, so they don't seem to be slowing down. Mid-market is where they're sort of growing. Obviously, it used to be when cloud first started, there was the onesie, twosie, 10-seat deals. Now it's growing. They say it's 55% of their new business is in the mid to enterprise size of the market. In the fourth quarter, they announced they had 15 deals that had a total contract value over $1 million. That was up from 10 in the third quarter and up from 5 the prior year. So tripling over the year. So again, moving higher into that segment. Part of it is obviously them probably focusing on it, but some of it also is the credibility that cloud is now getting in the market space with larger organizations. Subscriber churn is about 10%. That's not the best number in the world. Usually churn in the cloud is well under 10%, so 10% is an interesting number for them to have. Certainly, though, obviously not impacting their growth. So RingCentral's offerings, you have RingCentral Office, which is the main UC Cloud PBX application that they have, accounts for 93% of revenues. So everything else, peanuts. RingCentral Professional is an interesting application. Think of it as sort of like a dumbed down cellular PBX type thing. It's only a smartphone application. There's no desk phone. There's no other stuff that's associated with a typical UC installation. It's a cellular only connection, Android and Apple devices. And because of that, it doesn't have all the features that you would expect in a system. But let's say you're a couple of 3 users and you're all just on your mobile phones, that may be enough for you. So think of something maybe like a real estate office where there's half a dozen people in the office, everyone's out on the road all the time showing houses. This may be enough for that type of an installation. Realize that there's 2 packages. Inbound only can cost you between $13 and $20 a month, depending on minutes that you want to use. Inbound and outbound is $35 a month. So again, kind of points to that sort of small end of the market. $35 a month. I have an inbound, outbound, office, semi-PBX thing that kind of works if I'm in a small business. RingCentral Fax is what it says. It's a dedicated internet fax service. You can either have fax and go to desktop, you can have it go into Outlook, Google Docs, Dropbox, wherever you can have the faxes stored. Depending on what you want to do with it, runs from $13 to $50 a month. That's based on the number of faxes you think you want to receive and the number of numbers that you use. So $13 a month gets you 1 fax number and a certain number of faxes per month. $50 a month gets you multiple fax numbers And then if you continue from there, you get unlimited at $40 a month, but that's unlimited based on a single fax number. If you want to add a second fax number, $5 per number for that as well. RingCentral meetings, webinar, and rooms. Think of that as sort of what we're doing now, but it's an old-fashioned sort of web conferencing kind of app. Also the ability to connect into different types of room-based conference systems. If you want to connect into Polycom or something like that. RingCentral Glip, so RingCentral acquired Glip a couple of years ago. It's a team collaboration application. You can think of that similar to what Circuit is today, although it's not as robust as Circuit, but it does the same sort of, you can have a persistent chat, you can load up files, you can have a certain amount of video and audio conferencing like we're doing now. In all of the RingCentral Office packages, the $0 Glip is included, so that gives you 500 minutes per month. If you want to go above 500 minutes, it's $5 a month per user. There's no word on what the cost is for over 1,000 minutes. One assumes there's some per minute charge. But it's interesting. I mean, think of how Circuit is used. It's kind of an unlimited tap. You can have as many people in the conference. You can have conferences going all the time. A per minute charge seems an odd way to charge for team collaboration. And in fact, they're the only ones I've ever come up with who charge in that manner. So it's an interesting kind of thing. 500 minutes per month equals about 2 hours of conferencing per user per week. Depending on a business, that may or may not work. Certainly my own personal use is a heck of a lot more than 2 hours a month on Circuit doing calls. So just be aware that that's part of the offer package as well. If you look below, you get into how they do package their stuff. So RingCentral on the first column has a number of users. So if you're under 100 users, there's a certain price point. If you're from 100 to 1,000, another price point. 1,000 to 10,000, another price point, and then above 10,000. Within those buckets, you also have whether you sign up an annual contract or whether you sign up month to month. Month to month is always more expensive. And so the Essentials package that you see there inside the Office plans, that's really only good for users who are under 100 and usually under 10 users. And so most of the time you're out there, you're probably not going to see the Essentials package. Essentials really is pretty much essential. I mean, it's a lot of times, as you can see over there, 100 minutes, 4-party conference, you get the 500-minute Glip package on that. Think of it more like a lobby phone, that type of thing where there's nobody really attached to it. I mean, 100 toll-free minutes doesn't mean much. Most customers are going to buy either standard, premium, or ultimate. And as you can see, like in the sub 100 range or the whatever, in each of the ranges, the differential between an annual contract and a month-to-month is about $10. And so what's $24.99 in one is $34.99 if you don't sign an annual contract. And so those are all their prices. Above 10,000 is a custom quote. What's in those packages, assume that there is a basic amount of PBX sort of features, messaging, all that sort of stuff. What's on the right-hand side is what's in addition to that, or what's different. So Essentials is, like I said, 100 toll-free minutes. Once you get up to standard, that's 1,000 minutes. Premium is 2,500, and Ultimate gets you to 10,000. The other differential is conferencing. So Essential and Standard both support 4-party conference. Premium supports 50 and Ultimate 75. You then pick up Internet fax in Standard. Premium picks up some API integration stuff, single sign-on, and pre-built integrations to Salesforce, Zendesk, and Desk. What you pick up with Ultimate, voicemail transcription on top of the Premium. And those are the big things that differentiate each of those packages. As you can see below, Contact Center, it's an OEM of InContact, and it's pretty much a custom quote. If you go to the InContact site, it's a custom quote there as well. Most contact center vendors in the cloud, it's custom. So the key sort of takeaways, the key weaknesses, how you can hit on RingCentral if you're in a deal, they're expensive. So think about 100 users of Office Standard is about $30,000 per month annually, based on, say, $30 per user per month. You'll notice down there you either have the option of $24.99 or $34.99 for that package, depending whether you're annual or month to month. I just took the middle of that and said 25 to 35, let's just call it 30. Compare that with Unify at $19,000 a month for our standard package. Even if you say, okay, fine, I'll sign an annual contract at 25 bucks a month, you're still at $25,000 per month versus 19,000. So it's still a good savings there. Key selling point, if you look at like our packages, so Unify via NTS, we offer OpenScape Cloud and Circuit plus a SIP connection, plus a phone, and the smartphone app, all for the same price as RingCentral's Office Essentials at 20 bucks a month. The similar price, bundle to bundle kind of thing, if you go standard against us, it would cost more than $30 a month. Because in addition to what all those contract prices for RingCentral say in the lower left, things like a desk phone are not included. And so you'd have to add in the amount of a desk phone. And as you can see on the next bullet, there are multiple, little small add-ons that sort of sneak up the price. $5 per month for a fax number, $5 to $80 a month for a phone. Most of the UC phones are going to run between, like, say, $5 and $12 or $13, depending on how spiffy you want to get. The $80 phones and those in that range, those are the whiz-bang conference phones, the big hubcap kind of phones that sit in the middle of a table. So there's a variety of phones there. There's Cisco, there's Yealink, there's Polycom phones that are part of that. So again, none of those phones are included in those prices that are in the lower lower left. Severe lack of conferencing support. I mean, the Unify offer gives you Circuit, which we're on now, as well as all the UC features. Within Circuit, your conferencing is limited to 1,500 users. So there's none of this like 4-party conference stuff or 50-party conference stuff. You can have a conference pretty much as big as you're going to want. And so that's something that you'd have to use an outside service for. So let's say you had a need to do 100-party conference. You'd have to talk to somebody like WebEx or whatever to sign up for that. Whereas with us, that's just in the box. So you don't have that limitation of conferencing. So that's another piece to hit RingCentral with. Another oddity of RingCentral, over half of their workforce are contractors, and depending on your bent, they're in politically controversial locations. So in FY16, the last time they reported this, they had 1,037 actual employees compared to 1,546 contractors. 1,483 of them were overseas. The two biggest countries were Philippines with 937 and Russia with 544 of these contractors. There was some conversation when I was talking to Unify people about this, and they were, oh, well, it's probably customer service people and probably offshoring some engineering stuff. And I said, well, yes, that's true, but if we actually look also at like job postings or whatever from RingCentral, you see a lot of what you'd consider to be corporate functions that are also contractors, marketing functions, some types of accounting, those types of internal functions that are also contractors. So it's interesting that there is such a big bucket of contractors for this company. It makes you wonder, continuity-wise, all sorts of questions get raised when I see that number. It just seems very odd. So it may be an oddity that works with a customer you're talking to, may not. But to me, reading financial statements a lot, that was odd. I've never seen a company actually talk like that. Also their weakness, lacking the integration into premises solutions. I mean, we all know that moving to the cloud is usually I have one foot still with the PBX in my closet and I have one foot in the cloud. And over time I move all the way to the cloud, or I have this sort of hybrid environment. To have a real hybrid environment, in theory, your cloud should have some connection point to the premise solution. You should be able to, see presence across the solution. You should be able to, do, extension dialing across the solution. If you look at the way RingCentral does it, they really don't talk to anything on premise. They only really talk to their own solution. So again, if you're looking at OpenScape Cloud with Circuit, you can do two things. One, you can integrate OpenScape Cloud with a premise PBX and get those types of functions that you would see on premise, so you can have that hybrid environment. But you also have the ability to have Circuit overlay on top of those other PBX systems that someone may have and be able to offer service there as well. So you're able to actually bring up a dial pad within Circuit and be able to dial a phone from a Cisco PBX using Circuit, because we have the telephony connector that allows that to happen. And you don't necessarily need OpenScape Cloud to make that happen. Circuit can do that on its own if a customer just wants to go that route. So we offer customers a variety of ways to not only be hybrid between premise and cloud, but also to be hybrid from a back-end environment that says you can have Cisco, you can have Avaya, you can have Unify, whatever the heck you have in the back room, we can tie that all together. And that's something that RingCentral doesn't do. Partnerships with Zoom for video and in contact for a contact center point that there's some, it's not a complete solution beyond the core. And that's, these smaller companies, these startups who haven't been in the market that long, you kind of see that happening, right? So, I mean, we start out, we need to get the core UC application going, and that's what we're going to spend all of our time on. And then they start bringing in some of the extra pieces that they may need. Now, clearly, In Contact was purchased by NICE last year, and for basically $1 billion. So I don't think RingCentral is going to buy In Contact, but at some point RingCentral may develop their own contact center, or more likely purchase a cloud contact center player to roll into their portfolio. So what are OpenScape and Circuit strengths? Unify really has one multi-tenant application for premise and cloud users, OpenScape Voice and Circuit. So if you have a customer who says, I'm not so sure about the cloud today, maybe I need another PBX, and then at some point I will move on to the cloud, Unify is a good answer for that, because you can install OpenScape Voice inside their premise, and then over time, as they want to move to OpenScape Cloud, they can have users on both systems because they're the same system. They can have users, the user features across the platform. So you're not having to deal with, oh, I really liked this when I was on premise, and then now it doesn't work in the cloud. It's less going to happen with us because it's the same solution at both ends. RingCentral is also multi-tenant, but like I said previously, it doesn't support CPE systems. So their idea of hybrid is really just side-by-side systems, basically, the walled garden effect. Carrier routes from our side of the house, easy and seamless scalability from very small to very large. As you see, I mean, RingCentral is certainly moving up in customer size, but they're still really not taking customers who are in the multi-thousand range very regularly. And that may be partially because those companies don't want to go cloud or are a little bit hesitant, but it could also be, RingCentral doesn't promote those kinds of deals. We have the ability to seamlessly scale those deals. Circuit supports all types of users on all types of telephony systems. So if your underlying telephony system is OpenScape Cloud or OpenScape Voice, sure, we have the, our own telephony connector that connects to those systems between Circuit. But if you're not, like I said previously, if you're on Avaya or Mitel or somebody else, you get the universal telephony connector and just plug the system into Circuit, and then you have a great hybrid environment. Even though RingCentral acquired Glip, Glip does not offer the integration into RingCentral Office or even third-party systems that we can support. So they may have team collaboration, but our team collaboration does a heck of a lot more. And if you look at team collaboration, we have one of the largest installed bases of team collaboration with over 500,000 users that are paid. RingCentral's Glip did not have that many clients when RingCentral bought them in 2015. And Glip is an add-on. Can you say that if a customer is buying RingCentral Office and the free version of Glip is included in RingCentral Office, does that make it a paid subscription to Glip? Or is it really only the $5 customers who are considered paid subscribers? So just an interesting point. OpenScape Cloud works with various carriers and service providers, which is a win-win for customers. RingCentral really only works with RingCentral. And so customers need to just deal with their SIP provider versus whatever else may be, they may be wanting. Unify and Atos corporate strengths. I mean, basically, size-wise, we got them beat. I mean, they're 500 million, which is nothing to sneeze at, but Atos is a $12 billion leader in IT services. There's over 100,000 employees in 72 countries. In addition to Unify, there's Atos portfolio contains some other stuff that may be of interest to these customers, and certainly pieces of the puzzle that cross connect with what we're doing at Unify. So things like the Canopy Global Cloud Array. Codex and Bull give us cybersecurity and digital transformation practices. And we'll see one of those examples on the next page. Atos has a unique mix of those services that give some expertise to those companies. So again, as you move higher up into the world of customers, they're going to need a little bit more stuff, right? I mean, if you've got somebody who's got 10 users, their need for customization or their ability to pay for customization is very low. But if you've got a company out there who's had their own system that they've customized and tweaked over the last, God knows how long, when they go to the cloud, they're going to want some ability to make things connect and do what they want. Atos and Unify have got the ability to help those customers make those connections and to duplicate those kinds of features that they have on-prem. If you look at RingCentral, there's no way that they're outfitted to be able to provide that kind of expertise. And so that's certainly a good selling point against RingCentral to customers. Both Unify and Atos offer experience in vertical markets and geographies. Like we said, we're in 72 countries, all sorts of vertical markets, manufacturing, financial services, healthcare, you name it. If customers are in those verticals and have specific needs, we're certainly there with experience to help them. RingCentral portfolio strengths, because let's face it, nobody's perfect. They have their own strengths just as well. So from a corporate standpoint, I would say, 32% growth curve, even as revenues top 500 million, that's pretty good. Because like I said, as those businesses tend to get larger, the weight of their prior revenue weighs on them and their growth percentage tends to slow. And they're still predicting for 2018 that they're going to be growing at about the same rate. So that's pretty good. Equally strong in the mid and enterprise level. Like I said, it's a third of new revenues. That's pretty good. 17 data centers in 4 regions. They certainly have the globe covered pretty well. 36 country support. Strong for the UCaaS market because most of the UCaaS market is onesie-twosies, right? I'm very strong in one country and I really haven't had time or money to expand beyond that. So RingCentral certainly has a good footprint. It's not 72 countries, but 36 is basically half. Product offering strengths, it's pretty easy packaging and ordering. You can go to their website, you can click your way through an order process, get a number assigned to you and whatever. I mean, obviously, if you're going to do number porting, that's a different thing, but to be able to get new numbers and set yourself up new, it's actually pretty easy. They claim they have a 5.9 uptime, which is sort of the gold standard for what premise solutions delivered for years. They also have a stronger support for internet fax and SMS support. SMS just always mystifies me. I mean, do I really see companies, who have the mobile application on their phone sending an SMS to somebody that way? Do I see somebody sending an SMS into a company that then pops up on a smartphone or a desktop application? I don't know how much that's actually used, but maybe I'm just old. They also support different certifications like HIPAA, HITRUST, and FINRA, and so those give them a little bit of a leg up inside the healthcare and federal space. So like I said, not everybody has whatever. They've got some good strengths as well. So here are some key takeaways for you guys. So if you do OpenScape Cloud and Circuit, it's always going to be cheaper than RingCentral. Now, we can't say it's a certain percentage, obviously, because there's different packages at RingCentral. There's different packages from Unify. There's different add-ons with RingCentral. So those numbers will vary a little bit, but like I said in that first example, 100 users of RingCentral Office Standard, $30,000 per year for those customers for licensing costs versus $19,000 for Unify. And that RingCentral's 450 or 75 user conference support can't match Circuit's 1,500 attendees. I mean, you've just saved yourself the license requirements for WebEx. Just on that alone. Unify supports third-party PBX overlays and integration. RingCentral really only supports RingCentral. So again, for those customers who want to have a foot in both camps, who want to have a hybrid installation, or have a lot of old hardware in the background that they want to still make useful, we're the company to talk to, not RingCentral. Circuit User Interface is a complete desktop and mobile client. I mean, pretty much it's the de facto client here at Unify that we use. I do everything that I do on a phone or whatever inside one of the clients. RingCentral, regardless of how you do it, there's still two. I mean, you've got GLIP and you've got the RingCentral Office interface. GLIP is not integrated as well as Circuit is into their UC offer, and so you're always going to be using those two interfaces. Circuit connects, now this is an interesting one. This is the future stuff. So we're talking about a little bit, what does Atos bring to the table? So Circuit connects to mechanical sensor bots, which are actually provided by Atos, and that are able to report glitches and automatically assemble teams. So say you're in manufacturing and some machine blows up on the floor, you'd want to know about that pretty quick. And so a sensor in that machine fires off a note to a circuit room that contains people who are on the team that manage that machine. When a report comes in that something has happened, the team is automatically assembled and the bot reports the instance or the issue with the machine at that point in real time. And so you not only have a conference where all the parties are there, but you also have the sensor giving you real-time data as you're trying to diagnose and figure out what's going on. That's a future thing that's coming to Circuit. I would say future kind of very soon, but it's going to be a future thing. So that's one of those instances where being part of Atos gives us an interesting edge over other competitors in the market space. You don't see RingCentral talking like this. You don't see Cisco or any of the other ones talking like this either. And so that is kind of a uniqueness that we can bring to the table. So that's what I've got on RingCentral. Are there any questions? All right, I'll assume not, and we will move on to 8x8. So 8x8, located also in California. They're in San Jose. They've got 1,019 employees, and they're actual employees, not contractors. And they claim over 1 million users in 100 companies representing 54,000 organizations. Now remember, let's compare that with what we saw with RingCentral. RingCentral claiming 300,000 organizations. So that's just how much bigger RingCentral is. While they claim users in 100 countries, really in their fiscal year 2017, sales were really conducted in the US, which was 89% of revenues, and the UK and Europe, which only accounted for 11. So the 100 countries are, I have an office in Chicago and I've got a sales guy in Hong Kong, so I'll just set him up with a number and we'll be done with that. And so technically there's somebody in Hong Kong, but they're really not, the business is located in Chicago. And so that's how they get to the 100 countries. It's not that they necessarily have a sales presence there, they're just able to support somebody there. Primary target market is Cloud UC and Contact Center. In the third quarter, they introduced this differentiated offering for this SMB and LME markets. So it sounds like they're bringing different offerings, but it's less offerings than it is different types of marketing materials, different sales teams. So they've understood that somebody who wants 20 seats is not going to be the same type of buyer who needs 1,000. And so they realized they needed a different skill set and different materials to talk to those larger customers. And so that's what they mean when they're saying differentiated offerings. It's more on the marketing and the sales side than it is the actual product side. Financials in the latest third quarter 2018, they were 75 million, up 19% year over year. Their forecast for fiscal 18 is 293 million, or a 16% increase year over year. So again, compare that with RingCentral, who's growing double that. So it's interesting. RingCentral clearly the bigger case here. Average monthly annual revenue per customer increased to $454 per month from $414 year over year. So a 9% increase in the monthly contract or the monthly payment per customer. What that basically means is the size of their customers are growing, but not hugely, because 414 to 454 basically means, yeah, I got one guy to buy, I grew by one person. The average company size grew by one person because their cheapest package, as you see below, is 25 bucks. So they basically grew by a person or so. Majority of revenues from 100 plus user segment claims they have customers with 10,000 plus users. Customers may be, an exaggeration. It may be one. Who knows? But given the revenues and given the average revenue per customer, there's a heck of a lot that are well below 100. The 100 plus segment and that 10,000, those are more anomalies at this point. I think that's why they're doing the marketing and sales differentiating for that market to try to bring themselves more of that business. Plus, I assume they're seeing RingCentral being more successful there. 8x8 cloud offerings, they've got 12 data centers over 7 dispersed regions, the US, Canada, UK, continental Europe, Singapore, Asia, Australia, and the Philippines. Their contracts run from 1 to 4 years. They don't talk about month-to-month contracts, only multiple year contracts. Their basic portfolio consists of Virtual Office, which is their main application. It includes a calling plan and a healthy set of PBX, unified messaging, UC type features, as well as some audio conferencing. Virtual Contact Center came from the acquisition they made in 2011 of a company called Contactual. They also have sort of a quick and dirty contact center solution called Contact Now, simplified contact center for small teams, basically like the under 10 market. And that was also, like I said, an acquisition. Virtual Office Meetings is a cloud video and web conferencing application. And they also have this interesting thing called Same Room, which they acquired in 2017 from a company called LeChat. And that's what's interesting. So Same Room integrates, the marketing stuff integrates 20 team collaboration applications into combined rooms for cross-platform communications. So it sounds pretty good, right? I got one guy on Slack, I got one guy on Microsoft Teams. Let's bring them together into a same room. Well, there's a whole lot of limitations to that, and we will get to that on the next pages. But just be aware they talk a good game on that, but the actual deliverable, pretty weak. So as you can see below, those are the package prices of what they offer. So virtual office plans, there are 3, X2, X5, X8, basically 25, 35, and 55. If I buy the 55 plan, that's $20 extra and gets me Contact Now. So that gets me a little bit of that. And I assume it gets you the standard license and maybe a little bit of the Pro, but at only a $20 delta from the X5, you're not getting the ultimate package and you're unlikely to be getting the Pro because you do get other things with that. So at 25 bucks, you can call 14 countries. And by the way, 8x8 so far is the only one I've come up against who talk about the number of countries that they serve. Most everybody says we have a domestic calling plan and then we have an international calling plan. With 8x8, it's just a calling plan that covers a certain number of countries. So X2 covers 14 countries, X5 covers 32, and X8 covers 46 country calling. Within the storage capacity, you've got a gig in the X2, 5 gig in the X5, and 10 gig in the X8. As far as conferencing, it's sort of similar to what we saw with RingCentral. 5-party conference in the X2, X5 gets you 25, and X8 gets you 50. From there, like I said, you can add on some basic contact center, and you get standard, Pro, and Ultimate. And basically, the standard one that's $0, basically you get 4 cents a minute for any inbound or outbound calling. And that's how they make their money off that. So there really is no zero cost unless you're a call center that doesn't take any calls. 1 month of recording storage, some basic IVR, and as from the support side of the house, you only get email support. You can't talk to anybody if there's a problem. Pro for $50 gets you 2,000 minutes and then 3 cents for every additional minute. Gives you 3 months of recording as well as email and phone support. For 75 bucks a month, you get 5,000 minutes and then 2 cents for every additional minute. You've got an inbound and outbound calling, the IVR, you've got a year worth of recording storage, call recording, and you get email and phone support, plus also reporting. And that's what's weird about it. So that's why it's a small solution. Imagine the contact center that says, yeah, we really don't need any reporting. Doesn't really happen that much. So this is really the very, very small contact center. Like I said, probably the under 10 user segment. And so a lot of them probably aren't going to need super amounts of reporting. And so maybe these $0 or $50 a month things are going to work for them. I think once you get into the ultimate at $75, you should probably start looking at virtual contact center, because $75 a month is a pretty good price for a contact center, and you can do probably better than what they're offering with Contact Now. Like I said, virtual contact center, there are 3 packages there as well. Standard gives you voice only. Pro gives you voice, email, and chat communications. That's not support. That's an agent can handle an email or a chat transaction. When you get to Ultimate, you add in quality monitoring and campaign management, as well as a dialer. And so you get more serious outbound capabilities with Ultimate. So from 8x8's perspective, what are the big selling points for us and what are their weaknesses? They have no team collaboration. As you go out to customers and talk to them about OpenScape Cloud and Circuit, they're kind of lockstep together, because that's how businesses are starting to operate today. 8x8, as far as I know, is the only competitor out there that really doesn't touch on the team collaboration space. And so that's certainly a big thing to hit the customer with. Not only do we have Circuit that does all these really cool things, it's also a client that marries all this stuff together. 8x8 has nothing. And so if you want persistent chat, the ability to share files or have sessions like we're having right now, you're kind of going outside. You have to go to another team collaboration application. So maybe you go to Slack, and then you want to do conferencing, because remember, their conferencing is pretty bad. At best, you get 50-party conferencing, but if you need more than that, you have to go to somebody like a WebEx or GoToMeeting or somebody like that. With us, when you're buying OpenScape Cloud and Circuit, you've got 1,500 users inside of a room. You have the common user interface of Circuit. You have the persistent chat, file sharing, and all that stuff already built into the package. So why would you spend all the money on 8x8 and not get that big piece of the pie? Still, they're a relatively small company with a very limited actual international footprint. They claim 100 countries, but everyone's paying in either dollars, euros, or pounds. And so, like I said, that speaks more to the company located in the US or maybe the UK who has got a satellite office somewhere that's able to hang 5 or 10 or whatever users off of that central system. And that, in doing that, 8x8 counts that as being another country supported. Even though they were founded in 1987, has been unprofitable for many years. No integration with third-party services or legacy PBXs. So sort of the same thing I said with RingCentral. Those customers that want to move from premise to cloud slowly, 8x8 really says you pick us, or you have premise, or you have both, but they're never going to talk to each other. Or you have customers with underlying infrastructure that they want to be able to connect together, Cisco PBX, Mitel, Avaya, whatever it is. They don't even have team collaboration, let alone the ability to marry those systems together using that kind of common interface. And so OpenScape Cloud offers you that. In the E911 space, it's a very weird E911. I've never seen anything like it. So they call it a nomadic service when there is no actual location identification. So what happens is, if you're in a situation where you have to call 911 from the corporate phone system, your 911 call goes to a centralized clearinghouse that then basically says, "Where are you?" And they say, "Oh, okay." And then they call 911 and send them to your location. How many seconds or minutes get lost in that? Who knows? But it's just a weird setup. And I would think, legally actionable. If I was somebody who was in a burning building and had to go through this whatever to try to get to a 911 operator, and maybe if I didn't die, if I died, my heirs would sue to say that's just crazy. Anybody who's interested in safety and 911 services, that's a little nuts. And so from the Unify perspective, when you dial 911, guess what? You get 911. They know where you are. They're able to send the appropriate whatever to you, ambulance, fire truck, whatever. And there's none of this, centralized clearinghouse that kind of has to get information from you to then pass on to the real 911 people. It's just hokey. Package options include analytics. There are 3 levels of analytics. Again, that's when I underline options, that means it's chargeable. A 4th line appearance, hot desking, call queuing, branch office support, virtual extensions, installation services, number allocation, all of that stuff adds to the bill. So in addition to 25, 35, and 55 with the packages below, the X2, X5, X8, you're then adding all of this stuff on top of it as well. So remember in the RingCentral deck, we said, if you take our standard package for 100 users, you're at $19,000 per year in licensing costs. If you look at RingCentral, you're at a minimum of $25,000 in licensing costs for X2. Plus, if you want to actually get any kind of reporting, if you want to do hot desking, if you have a branch office, any of that stuff, start adding money on top of that. So there's a lot more money in the game also with 8x8 compared to what OpenScape Cloud is offering. So from an OpenScape Cloud and circuit strength perspective, a lot of these are the same versus RingCentral, basically because 8x8 and RingCentral have basically the same business model. So as I said before, we're a single multi-tenant application for premise and cloud users. So if you have us in the premise and you go to the cloud, same features await you in the cloud. But also, we're able to connect to those other platforms. So if you have another third-party PBX, we can connect to that and provide those kind of hybrid services so that that customer can keep that asset that maybe they haven't sweat the asset, maybe they just want to keep it in the back room for whatever. You can still give new life to those older systems. We can also via Circuit connect to those telephony systems. So Circuit doesn't just provide telephony services within the Unify environment, they can do that with third parties as well. Neither of those things are offered by 8x8 or in fact any of the cloud players. Even Cisco or Microsoft. Microsoft Teams only works with Microsoft installations, doesn't work with anybody else's voice application. Same thing with Cisco Spark and BroadSoft that we'll see in the next session. We're really unique in being able to provide that really good hybrid service for either older systems or multi-system users. Unify Atos corporate strengths, again, pretty much the same. $12 billion leader. We've got a bunch of things in the portfolio that others don't have, like the Canopy Global Array, Codex and Bull for that cybersecurity and stuff. Again, those types of things aren't offered by these smaller companies because they just don't have the breadth that we have. 8x8 strengths, like I said, everyone's got some. So corporate level strengths, fast growing company, not as fast as RingCentral, but still pretty fast, 16% growth year over year. Global data center coverage, even though sales really are the US and UK only. What those other data centers are supporting, it remains a bit of a mystery. R&D at 10% plus of revenues, and they make strategic acquisitions. They've made one of the few with a native UC and contact center application. Now, granted, like I said, the contact center was the formation of 2 different acquisitions, DXI and Contactual, but still, they got it both in the box, and they're spending a big amount of their revenues on R&D. Considered a leader by many analyst houses like Gartner. And there's a subtle marketing and product shift, like I said, to differentiate for larger users. So again, they've got those separate sales teams, marketing materials and such to try to speak to those larger customers to be able to bring more of them into their account base. Product offering strength, same room is interesting. So it says that connects 8x8 to 20 different team collaboration apps like Skype, Slack, Spark, et cetera, allowing for some cross-platform collaboration. But many of those platforms are really esoteric. I mean, IRC is one of them. So for those of you over God knows how many years old, you remember what IRC was, Internet Relay Chat. And really, it really is only a chat kind of thing. There's no audio video conferencing like we're doing right now. inconsistent room and chat support depending on which one of those you're trying to connect to which other one. And so whereas it sounds interesting to be able to have that broker service where a Slack client can talk directly to a Microsoft Teams client, they can only do it in almost rare circumstances. And actually, it's the same room people created that link there that you can go to and read all the limitations that are in each of those 20 team collaboration apps, because every one of them has limitations. And so you're really not getting much out of it. Most of it is limited to one-to-one communication, so there's really no conferencing at all. It's odd. So like I said, whereas it sounds really good, the actual practice is pretty weak. And so you're still going to wind up with customers who are on 8x8 who want to use team collaboration, still requiring a third-party service that they're most likely paying for. With Circuit and OpenScape Cloud, it's all in the bundle. You don't have to deal with that. And the specifications for Circuit are certainly much higher than most any of the team collaboration applications out there today. They also have some open APIs. They're built with pre-built integrations with Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, NetSuite. Those pre-built integrations are very convenient for their users to be able to access. And so that's one of their strengths. Key takeaways. Like I said, 8x8 doesn't offer team collaboration like Circuit. Users have to pay for a third-party service. Domestic users will definitely save money with Unify. Because I don't know what the international calling plans are, international may save money. So like I said, if you look at Unify's essential package at $14.95 a month versus 8x8's X2 at $25 a month, there's a lot of difference going there. Once you add in some of the add-ons, if you add in a phone on our side, if you add in a phone on their side, and different other things, there's still going to be a savings there. The question comes in that X2 package does include some international calling, and how our international overlays with that may or may not, it will reduce those savings. How much, I don't know. 8x8's 5, 25, and 50 user conference support can't match Circuit's 1,500 attendees. Just like we saw at the RingCentral piece of this, nothing is holding a candle to those 1,500 users that you can support in a single session with Unify. Unify supports third-party PBX overlay as well as integration. 8x8 really only supports 8x8. And if you are using the team collaboration stuff, you're getting that sort of hodgepodge of capabilities. You don't really have a certain set of features. And so that's problematic, I think. The Circuit user interface is a complete desktop and mobile team collaboration client. 8x8 would require at least 2 user interfaces from 2 different vendors, because you'd have the 8x8 UI as well as whatever team collaboration app UI is, and you can bet there's no real integration. So like I said, from Circuit, I can bring up a dial pad and call somebody. If I'm in 8x8 and I've got somebody else's team collaboration, there's really going to be no telephony connection between the two that would actually allow me to use one client. So you're always going to be stuck with 2. And that last bullet is what I said with the RingCentral session. The ability that Circuit will have to connect these mechanical sensor bots into a collaboration room that's able to automatically fire up a conference when there is an event trigger is something that's at this point unique in the marketplace. 8x8 with the third-party team collaboration application, they're never going to be able to get to that point where that team collaboration application is able to map sensor data into a conversation that then is able to pull users from RingCentral into it because the systems aren't connected. And so that would be a big hassle, and doubtful that that would play out in an 8x8 world. And so being able to talk to customers about that kind of future vision gives an idea that we're moving on a track that 8x8 probably will not follow. And so I think that's obviously a good thing to talk about, because customers love talking about the future. Everybody's out there buying a Ford Escort, but they really want to talk about the Lincoln Continental. So it's the same kind of an idea. So with that ends the 8x8 section. Are there any questions out there for RingCentral or 8x8?